We are live in 5, 4, 3, cue him. Welcome to GarageBand Weekly, our 50th episode. Thank you for everyone's support and for getting us to 50. And instead of just doing our regular show and you looking at my mug for the whole time, I've actually brought some special guests along. So you can meet some of the folks behind the scenes here in the GarageBand world. So let's bring them in one by one. First up, we have an accomplished GarageBand creator, an awesome musician, and one of the moderators of the GarageBand Users Facebook group. Please welcome Jude Cabana. How are you doing today, Jude?
Hi, Pete. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm exceptionally well. We'll get in and hear from you and your GarageBand backstory in a moment. But let's bring in our second guest. We have someone who is not only a creator of amazing music, but my original co-host on the original GarageBand Users Weekly. It is the one and only, clearly epic, Steve Marr. How you doing, Steve?
Yes, I'm doing great, Pete. Thanks for having me.
Very cool. It's good to go OG here. And speaking of OG, one of the OG pioneers of mobile recording, iOS recording, and she shares her knowledge daily on her How To app show. It is the one and only Jade Starr. What's going on, Jade?
G'day,
My
everyone. Hi,
Jade Starr, corporate
Hey,
shit.
Jake.
Jade and Steve are having a special relationship here on the show already. We haven't even started. Next up, our next guest, an accomplished musician, music teacher who shares some of the quirkier sides of music creation. Yes, it's the shovel bass wielding Mr. Dan Baker. How you doing, Dan?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. How are you? Here it is.
He's gone
There
for
it
a
is.
pop. There's the shovel bass. We'll have to hear about the shovel. For those that don't know the shovel bass story, we do need to hear about it at some stage on the show. But before we get into it, we've got a final guest. A guest who needs no introduction, but I'm giving him one anyway. The bloke who wrote the book, or at least I think he's written at least a book on GarageBand. It is the one and only Patrick Baird from GarageBand.
Hello, everyone. Hello,
Golf clap.
Pete. Thank you for having me.
Yes, gold claps all round. Thank you, everyone, for being here. An all-star cast of GarageBand gurus. No pressure, but people are waiting and expecting you to be dropping the knowledge here about GarageBand. And so that folks get to know maybe a little bit about you and your music creation, I thought a cool way to start off would be to hear your GarageBand origin story. So what got you into GarageBand and start using GarageBand for your music creation? So why don't we go in the order that we've brought you in here? So Jude, you want to kick us off and let us know why GarageBand? What got you into this crazy caper?
Sure. Thanks, Pete. Well, I started writing and recording songs in around 2011 in a Zoom recorder, which is just a silver box with a very small screen, and got into a group on Facebook, and a friend of mine talked me into moving to GarageBand. In 2016, I bought a MacBook and never looked back. Was so happy to be able to see sound waves and chop things up visually and move them around and build my songs that way. So it's been a life-changing event to move to GarageBand and have it on the digital screen.
Brilliant. And for those of us old enough to know recording without a screen and recording with just sound, and I know we'll talk to some other folks who've got some experience on 4 tracks and other recorders in the past. GarageBand and having that visual is definitely revolutionary. Mr. Clearly Epic Steve, what got you into GarageBand? I know a bit about your history, but for those that don't know, why GarageBand? What got you started?
Well, so you and Jade had a video a few days ago, and one of the topics was imposter syndrome. And I tell you, like right now, I'm in a group of like accomplished musicians. And for me, it was only a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that we first got our iPhones. And, so then my kids are in the back seat playing with all the different apps that came on the phone. One of them was GarageBand. So then I thought it was just a noisemaker in the beginning. Then I started, what happens when you start getting iPhones and they start tracking your usage. All of a sudden, you get suggested videos on YouTube and all these things. So all of a sudden, GarageBand stuff starts coming up, and I didn't even know what a DAW was. And, here we are 3 years later. I'm a moderator in the GarageBand users group. I've a lot of great music using a free app. That was awesome, Jade. That was so cool. we just had the whole vape cloud come right. Anyway, it was just awesome. Anyway, where was I? Oh, made some awesome music, and it's all from a free app. And I've learned so much just from the group. And it's just awesome to be able to contribute to the group too. So.
Very cool, and people can check out your synth-laden tracks on your
right.
YouTube channel, Clearly Epic. So they should do that.
That's right.
Jade, I did introduce you as an OG mobile creator, and you were back in the days where you had to jailbreak, and you were using things like Music Studio and other things. What got you to GarageBand for the first time, and why did you embrace it? So,
I first came across GarageBand. A friend got an iMac. And I thought they were only for rich people. And I saw GarageBand and I was like, holy hell, it looks like it's a cheats method. But secretly I wanted one. Because I think at the time I had a 8-track hard disk recorder and Pro Tools on a laptop. And so that was 2003. And then in 2008, I got my first iPhone 3G. And I think it was 2011, GarageBand came out on iPhone, version 1. Downloaded that. It was like, oh my God, I finally got it. And so I had to jailbreak to be able to share files back and forth between each other. I've loved it ever since. It's a great launch pad to other DAWs and just to create full albums. There's so many options. I've learned so many instruments from using it. I've created so much music, and now I've just got my first Mac and GarageBand on Mac, and it's awesome. I love it. I'm so excited.
It is, and we'll talk later. But I hear you've been tempted by the dark side of Logic, and I think Jude, you're into the Logic side as well. So we'll judge you on that a little bit later. But for now, Mr. Dan Baker. Now, a lot of folks have probably watched you teach them GarageBand on their iPhone or iPad because you've released and launched a heap of tutorials, literally hundreds of videos. A lot of them about GarageBand. What first got you into this whole wacky world of GarageBand?
Well, I've still got an iPad 2, which, I have to sort of, grease it occasionally and put some coal in the side and just, make sure that there's enough pressure in the water in the cylinder. But it was like 8-track recording and free at the time. And I used it all the time when I was teaching. I mean, before that, I was using these, which I still have. So there's a Fostex R8 up here, and then a Revox, which is older than me. It's a 1973 2-track. And my brother and I used to record that way. We used to have reel-to-reel machine and a cassette machine, and we would record onto this stuff, and then record drums and bass, and then go across to another machine, adding a guitar part, and come back and just go backwards and forwards, so losing quality all the time. And then I'm actually a Logic user as well. I bought Logic in 2002, but I had an iPad, and GarageBand it's just such a great thing to get. Well, it not only get ideas on, but actually when you listen to the sound quality of what you get, and you play back something and you think, "Wow, this is pro level." Somebody called it a toy the other day, which I both agreed and disagreed with, because my daughter of 3 could use it. And it's only a toy in the respect that it's just testament to the designers of it, that it is so utterly usable. But I mean, of course, it's not a toy when you really get into using it, and when it is the thing that you get your ideas down on. And frequently I get, if I'm out and about and I just think of something, or think of something to record, I will put a track on. I will use GarageBand, and then sometimes if I carry on from that, I'll just upload it to just copy it to Logic, and it just opens up straight away, and it's just flawless, really. It's never crashed ever. Well, I know that's not really an accolade for a computer program if it never crashes, but actually it does everything I want, and all the plugins. The thing about GarageBand for me is that you can't start getting into the sort of silliness of adding plugin. You've got those 4 plus your reverb and echo, so it makes you think about what you're going to do. With my 8-channel recorder, every time I put it into rewind, I would be thinking, what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
sometimes that's stopping and thinking about what you're doing, which arguably you can do with GarageBand quite easily, but it's difficult with plugins left, right, and center on Logic, where you can actually end up undoing a creative idea because there's just too much there. I mean, my latest video was just 6 tracks, just making a simple backing track with no through at all. It just does what it does, you know.
Brilliant,
Yeah. So I use it all the time. I didn't manage to kill an iPhone SE with it. Recording 32 tracks of audio. I used all the tracks just to see if I could kill the phone. So I had about a gigabyte's worth of data going around the phone, and it's fine.
I was going to mention that because you mentioned you did your simple recording, and then you've also tried to legitimately kill your phone. So if you want to see put GarageBand and their hardware to the ultimate test, then check out Dan's video where he used all 32 tracks and tried to break it. Speaking of breaking things, a man who's known for his violence, Patrick. Now, you are the GarageBandGuide.com. So to ask you how you got into GarageBand, well, I don't know if anyone actually knows the story behind it. So what got you into GarageBand, and why are you the GarageBand Guide?
My wife's fault, primarily, yeah. She was my girlfriend at the time. I've been a musician forever, since I was about 7 years old, when I tortured my parents with trying to learn the violin for several years. But yeah, we'd lived together for a couple of years, and suddenly she mentioned that she had an old iBook G4, big plastic monstrosity. She mentioned, "Oh yeah, I've got this program on here. You can use it if you want. You can it's for musicians, I think." I was like, "All right, okay, I'll check it out."
I think.
Hours later, "Why didn't you tell me about this sooner? This is crazy." And it was like GarageBand 1 on this ancient old iBook G4. Completely fell in love with it. Kind of started to look for tutorials and stuff online. There wasn't a lot of stuff. So this is kind of back, 2010, 2011. So certainly wasn't the kind of number of channels devoted to GarageBand as there are now. And there was only one, which was Lewin from GarageBand and Beyond. Nobody else was covering GarageBand. There was kind of tips and tutorials, but nothing kind of focused specifically on this program. So kind of muddled along a little bit and kind of realized, actually, maybe there's a bit of a gap in the market here. I could maybe pretend like I know what I'm doing and try and teach people how to do it. And I've been doing that ever since. So
Brilliant stuff. And again, for the few folks that don't know, the GarageBand, you say it correctly, don't you? GarageBand. The GarageBand Guide.
6 of us have said it in a different way.
I think so. I think 6 different accents and 6 different pronunciations of GarageBand or GarageBand. Shout out to the folks who are here live. We do have a live studio audience. Someone said it did look like the match game. We had Andy who said University Challenge. That's a shout out for the UK folks. I don't know if that made it to the US, but that was a quiz show of university students. It's boring as it sounds. So if you do have questions for any of the folks we have here, again, you've got the gurus here. We've got moderators and admins from the GarageBand users group, GarageBand YouTube creators and tutorial makers. So now is your time. If you've got a question you haven't asked, you should be asking it today. And in fact, that's the next topic I wanted to cover here. And I'm going to put you all on the spot. Didn't even tell you I would ask you this. So, but let's get some value out there. With 6 of us here, surely we can share our 6 tips. So what is the one thing, if someone comes to you, what's your one sort of secret sauce, the thing that you use in music production or in GarageBand that has helped you the most? And it could be either a software or a hardware tweak or something that you do with your music that you didn't know about, that you learned along the way, that is now like a go-to process. So Jude, do you want to kick us off again? Is there anything you can think, not just to put you on the spot, anything you can think of when you're creating a song?
Glad it wasn't me.
Go-to thing.
Same here.
Just being able to chop things up. I do that quite often. I make loops out of my own music, and being able to kind of arrange in GarageBand or Logic, depending upon what stage I'm in, that's always been the most magical thing for me. That's probably it.
And when you, so for those that don't know, when you're chopping up loops, so you'll just record something and then you'll go, right, I want that 4-bar section, and then you'll pull that out and just loop it over and over again. So that's sort of the
correct.
Way
primarily starting with guitar. Sometimes it's MIDI keyboard, but in most cases it's guitar to form the structure, the verse, chorus, A, B's structure. And then on top of that, I might do something more organic, whether it's a guitar solo or a synth solo that I won't chop up, or maybe I will and take parts of it and move it around. But I do things so spontaneously that I have to fix it later. It's a lot of improvisation. More, it's a basic concept that I go in with, and then it's kind of just magic, or it's not, and I have to trash it in most cases. But finding the magic is the best part of this whole thing that we do, I think.
Absolutely. And I think the relevance there is, just hit record and start recording whatever you're playing. I think everyone I've spoken to in this group has that same mentality, which is that, you don't capture the stuff when you try for it. It's often when you're not trying that you can find that lightning in a bottle that you can actually pull together. And using loops, again, people look down their nose on loops. I love me some loops, whether they're pre-recorded or, as you say, making your own loops. I think it's a great way to get yourself started and a great inspiration starter for your tracks.
I've just got into live loops. I'm sorry to interject. And I know Dan's a master at it, but I just started working with it and, recording in the track view, but then pulling those sections into live loops and being able to play with them that way. And I think I'm going to get the
MPC?
$100. Yes. That's my Christmas gift. I just made space for it in the studio. I'm excited about it.
That's the key, isn't it? If you've made space for it, then you're allowed to buy it. That's the way it works with you. Absolutely. Mr. Steve Mara, what about yourself? Again, you've mentioned you've been on a few years GarageBand journey.
A few years.
Oh, just a few years. What have you learned along the way? What's your go-to?
Actually, not as much as you guys. I mean, seriously, for me, it was just recently, and before that, I had no experience with recording my own music. So my advice is make mistakes, because you're going to learn by doing. There's other people that can learn from a book or whatever like that, and you can learn from videos and all that, watching tutorials. But in our group, it's a beginner's journey, if you want to call it that, right? So I don't think anybody's in this group looking for, hey, I'm looking for somebody to master my music. I mean, we're in here to master the music. So, try different instrument combinations, or try different, plugins, try different, whatever you need to do, just make a mess of it. And that's the great thing about GarageBand as compared to, a reel to reel. For that, you can always go back and record over, but I'm thinking back to the times where movie makers, they only had so much film they could use, and it was expensive to go through film, so you wanted to get everything done in one take. Very true. In this digital age, we can just do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I think the important thing is just make mistakes and release what you come up with, get some advice and all that, but just keep creating. So I wish I had more time.
I know, yeah, and that is the thing. But you're right that the barrier to entry is super low now. And as Dan said before, his 3-year-old using. I know my kids love using GarageBand to just create, and you can literally hand it to anyone. And I think it's the I'm shooting fish in a barrel here because we're talking GarageBand to a bunch of GarageBand fans. But it is really, it can take you from you're just pressing some buttons on some live loops using 100% presets to completing an entire 32-track song that you mix and master and release. So it does cater and cover the whole gamut. So I love that one. Yes, embrace your failure, embrace the suck, embrace the fail, and just keep trying. You never know when you're going to hit that gold. Speaking of gold, Jade, what GarageBand gold do you have to share? What's your one go-to tip process that you have in your head?
Don't have a process. That is my
there
tip.
You go.
Because for the longest time, I remember I went to a recording studio. I don't know, 2007, and I was shopping around a CD I was working on at the time, my last Dread Circus CD, and the engineer heard my album, and he said, you put a lot of stuff in there. Maybe you should think about taking some out. And so that has been a real big problem for me, but capturing less is more. So my philosophy now is to do more is more, and then by the end of the song, have it at less is more. So it's always good to overfill your song with all these great ideas, but to keep in the back of your mind to reel it back in. And because, you know, if you listen to any pro song or, you know, commercial song that's on the radio, there's always plenty of space in there. And sure, you might have all these great ideas to pile on top, but to reel it in really gives the listener at the end of the song a better listening experience. And where I'm heading with that is my brain is stupid today. So start every project a different way. Like start with a different instrument. That's what I've been trying to do this year a lot, and using music memos to start a different thing, drag it over to GarageBand straight away. Start with the drums, start with the bass, start with something different, because every song's different. You don't want to, I think we fall into the trap of sounding the same all the time by falling into processes, and then we lose the danger that is gone from so much of today's music. I mean, so I listen to so much music today and just go, I could go to sleep, because there's no thrills, you know, there's no revolution. So yeah, to try something different every time. Don't fall into a pattern.
I love it. So what you're saying is I shouldn't pick up my acoustic guitar and start every song by playing a 3-chord progression. I should probably try something new.
You haven't been doing that lately.
I know I've been playing metal, thanks to you and Gary Houses and all the influence of the group. I've been playing hard rock. I've been playing stuff way too young for myself, or old, depending which way you go. Mr. Dan Baker, what's your advice on this GarageBand side of things in terms of your process or your music creation process?
For me, it's the sampler. It's the one thing that I was surprised to see when I first opened GarageBand up. Sampler, and I thought, what is this? And there are so many people. I mean, again, this is part of the process as well. I could think about getting a sound effect, and of course, because it's an iPad or an iPhone, you can go out in the middle of the forest and just press record. Not only on the sampler, but of course you can import your stuff as well. So go into the forest, bird singing, bring it back, slow it down 3 octaves, put it through lots of reverb and echo, and you've got yourself a backdrop to record to. And I've always when you capture things like bird song or traffic or just general stuff, there is always going to be something in that audio that links up with the tempo that you're in, and it always happens. and that for me is quite a nice that's quite a nice starting place. My degree is in electronic music, so I was studying Pierre Boulez and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen and all these sort of. That's part of the reason I got a tape recorder. So making tape loops, you know, the tape goes around a mic stand and then back through the heads and back through the mic stand and back through the heads and that sort of thing. And the sampler is an absolute. It's gold for GarageBand. I think you can only record one sound, but you can have 32 sampler tracks, you know, if you want. And then you can, of course, in live loops, you can then trigger those things, you know. So it's staggeringly good for that. But recording wise, I usually start off with a drummer app, and then because I'm a bass player first before guitar, I'll usually play a bass riff to that drum sound, and then try and then put my chords on afterwards. Depends what I'm doing, but yeah, the sampler for me that's the key.
And it's one that I probably haven't used enough. I know that in GarageBand Mac they've got the sampler. Is that? We'll ask Patrick in a moment. I'm pretty sure they have a sampler in Mac as well. But yeah, they've recently updated the look of the iOS sampler. Still the same functionality, and I must admit I don't use it enough. But yeah, it is very cool because again, you can use your own unique sounds and then loop them and then create them and then move them around the keyboard. And like you say, the sound of nature, it's always going to link up somehow. You're always going to get some rhythm or melody or something that comes out of those found sounds. So an excellent tip. Last but not least, Patrick, you get the longest time to think, so yours is going to have to be amazing.
Doesn't help. You guys all went really deep and right into the philosophical side of creating music there. I've not got anything quite as interesting as that. So for GarageBand for Mac specifically, if you've been using it for a while and are thinking, whether or not you should make the leap to Logic. I would say, first of all, if it's sounds and instruments you're looking for, then a sneaky little tip you can do, or a trick you can do, is to buy another Apple-made program, which is MainStage. So all the Apple programs, music programs on Mac, share the same sound library. So you're essentially, when you buy MainStage and install it, you can then access all of the loops and all of the instruments and all of the patches or presets that come with Logic in GarageBand. So you're not getting any other kind of functionality in terms of features, but if it's more sounds you're after, that might be a better option. It's only about 30 quid compared to £200 for Logic. So if you're kind of at the point where you want to explore some more sounds, but maybe don't want extra features, that's quite a good middle ground that you can go to.
That is a good tip, and I think you've even got a video about that, don't you, Patrick? That folks
Possibly,
could
yeah.
find on the GarageBand. I think, Dan, you've got a video about the sampler. You know, hey, we're here to share the love of all things GarageBand and GarageBand, both apps, and the creating of them.
Have you opened yours, Pete? Have you even opened yours on Mac yet?
My advice. So I haven't actually shared mine, but mine would be if you get a Mac, actually use it more than once. Don't just get frustrated because your audio interface won't plug in and then have a tantrum and leave it for 2 days. So that's what I've done. But I do need to grab my Mac again and try again. And I did joke that there should be a button in GarageBand for Mac that's the help button, and all it does is just phones Patrick. So I might rig something up. I'm sure I could get a macros set up or something that whenever I hit help in GarageBand Mac, it just Skypes Patrick immediately.
3 in the morning. Pete, what is it now?
Where's my guitar? I want the little pretty pictures. I don't know what I'm doing. A few of you talked about sort of different processes and different things you've recorded in, and we'll circle back around. I know, Jude, you have to answer the questions first every time, but maybe in the last one, I'll let you go last. That way you get some time to think. But you've moved into Logic, and obviously you've used Zoom before. What do you find the biggest differences? And if you, controversially, when you don't use GarageBand, why not? What do you find in other ways of recording that you can do for folks that are maybe looking to expand and maybe use a variety of things to create music?
Oh boy, there's just so many things. I mean, in terms of what Logic has that GarageBand doesn't, and in most cases, it's those little tricks that my music needs that in most cases, a pretty song doesn't need at all. And, someone with just basic knowledge of GarageBand could probably make a much better recording than I could make in Logic because, I'm experimenting and I'm playing and I'm not as concerned about sound quality as I am with just creating something different. I'm sorry. What was the question again? I
was just asking. You mentioned you use Logic. I was just asking. You've answered
Logic.
Despite not knowing the question, you've answered it.
So many things. I mean, just you can slow down tracks, speed up the start, slow down the ends. And there's been so many things that now GarageBand has that I'm not even really aware of because I start every song in GarageBand. Because there's something about the tracking of GarageBand that allows me to kind of punch in and out. And like I say, I start most songs in with guitar. But with Logic, it kind of wants to start a whole new track every time I go to overwrite a track. And I can't adjust the settings. At least I've not found a way to adjust the settings in Logic. But I kind of like using them as like a 1-2 punch. But I do, once I get it to a certain level, I just open it up in Logic, and that's the beauty. You don't have to export or do anything. You just open it, and it opens. There's no going back, but of course you have your GarageBand copy. But once you start advancing it in Logic, you're not really going back anyway. At least I'm not going back in most cases. But there's just so many things. But in terms of the simplicity of GarageBand, I mean, that really is the beauty of it. Like I said, I can get my songs started very much a lot quicker in GarageBand than I can in Logic.
Yeah, cool. And Steve, live from the basement there. Obviously you're using GarageBand quite a lot. Now, and you told me a story back in the old GarageBand Weekly show days, GarageBand Users Weekly, that you had access to like a much sort of a more pro kind of setup that you dabbled with. I think you landed back on GarageBand. Do you want to just share that story quickly?
So I was using contact libraries. Is that what that was? It was a Windows-based program with keyboard and everything. I didn't like it. It wasn't as intuitive. It was you guys can hear me, right? Because I'm all of a sudden I'm thinking I can't hear myself, and I have kind of whacked out.
You're a little faint, so just shout it out loud.
I'll go like this. Or not. So anyway, so the contact, is that what that was? Anyway, doesn't matter. I had to use different programs to be able to use the sound library. That's what it was. And so I was going through Reaper. I was using Cubase's. I think I went through, I can't remember, anything that was free. And it just wasn't intuitive like GarageBand. I was just trying to use the sound library. Honestly, GarageBand to me has enough sounds as a synth player for me to be able to make really whatever I want. I might I might look into using AUM or to be able to combine sounds, which I'm already doing right now when you're using multiple tracks. But with GarageBand, you only have like 30. And actually, I don't even know if it'll go up to 30 on iPad, because if you overload it, whatever. But I have no. I'm going to be like Jude. What was the question again?
What was the question again?
Yeah,
Can you repeat the question? Yeah, no, I think you've answered it, and I like what you're saying there about the simplicity and about the workflow. And I think both you and Jude have said,
if your daughter can use it, if your daughters can use it, for a 50-year-old guy, this is great, right? So I love it.
Love it. Very cool. And again, speaking of using lots of different stuff now, Jade, you've professed your love for Auria Pro. You use GarageBand. You've now having an affair with Logic, I believe, just in the last couple of days. I think you're engaged to be married to Logic, is what I read online. So let us know what you use sort of outside of GarageBand and why, and how that works in with your workflow.
Look, the first thing I made music on was a Commodore 64.
Yeah.
Where you got this overlay and you put it over the top of the keyboard and had a little piano over the top of a little plastic thing, and because the SID chip was amazing. Through the years, I've recorded in studios. I've owned Pro Tools. I've had a little Tascam Fortune.
Always with the props.
Yeah. So I've used Pro Tools. I've had my first actual real DAW was a Tascam 4-track. I think the last thing I recorded on a PC was Logic 5.5. Before that went over to Apple. That was the last version. I've still got it on this laptop, actually. It still works unbelievably. But all these really complicated DAWs, they're great, and there's so many fantastic options. I think the simplicity of GarageBand is what brings me back, because you can just touch on that little icon and bang, you're ready to go. It's like a really full-featured music memos app, but you can create an album on it. So that's the beauty of it. But I talk about Auria and Logic and all these things, and it's not for everybody. And even if you think it does look too complicated, then that's fine too. Like, there is no right DAW to be on. I think as you get more confident as you go on, a DAW like Logic, because I was watching tutorials. I watched 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tutorials that went for an hour each yesterday on Logic, and I was sitting there. Some of the things with like the what's the feature where you can change all the vocals and stuff, and like Melodyne kind of thing, and just
flex pitch.
Yeah, like I was on my bed over there watching, going, oh, it's amazing! Like, it's only $300. No, I have to buy it now. No, wait for the 90 days. So look, GarageBand is just easy to pick up, and that's the beauty of it. And I'll always go back to it. I'll never crap on it or anything like that. But the complicated DAWs are there for you to take it that little step further to, if you want to tinker, it's like having being a hobbyist, If you just want to tinker that little bit more with your car, then you're going to learn those little extra bits of flair that, they may use in a pro studio. But simplicity is the thing that makes GarageBand so easy. And, if they would just fix up the guitar sounds in iOS and maybe give us a few more drummers so the drums all don't sound the same. But as we've seen from lots of people lately, there's been a lot of people like changing the drums and getting better sounds out of the drums by splitting tracks and trying more and more different things. So, Anders and then who's the other dude who's... I can't remember.
Kyle,
that dude, yeah, the guy we all use. Yeah.
Everyone loves Kyle. Loves him. Yeah, and again, what I'm hearing again from you and from everyone is that do what makes you happy, use what works for your workflow. And speaking of workflows and recording on possibly every medium possible, Dan, what do you use outside of GarageBand, or what have you used? So you're holding up, that was the Atari ST, I believe, that you were holding up there as your prop. That was one of your first recording platforms, was it?
Yeah, that's got Cubase version 2 from 1987 or 8, I think. And that's fine. That works. I've got a lot of old MIDI synths. I've got an old Roland MKS50, which is like the JX3P rack, and it still sounds great. But lots of these sounds, they can really be made on. You get these people who say, "Oh, we need this. You need this original bit of kit." Well, actually, no, you don't, because it's about as quiet as a northern town centre on a Friday night, and it's kind of, so the synth versions are brilliant because they just do exactly what you need. And I think I echo what Jade said about the fact that it's the simple nature of GarageBand, but I would add to that it's the workarounds that you can do with it, like the drummer sounds. I'd export or merge the drum sound and then stick it through a guitar amp, or just the snare with a spring reverb, because I love my reggae and dub music, and you just stick a snare through that and it goes with a triplet, and the AU plugins as well, the audio units on where you can actually start playing with delays to micro sort of levels, and all of that is in the box, and you don't need to go and buy any other this, that, and the other to do it. I mean, for me, when I use Logic, I do use sometimes use the flex pitch option. There's just one note that's slightly out, but it actually does. It doesn't leave the sound unscathed. If you solo it out, you can hear that it's been, that it has been edited. But I've got Melodyne 6 as well. I do a lot of recording for people who want to basically sing a song and record it for themselves or a loved one or whatever. So I pitch up with my iMac with Logic, and I've got an audio, a universal audio interface. Lovely thing, but it's only Thunderbolt, so you can't, as far as I know, connect that to GarageBand. But it's an incredible thing that's free, and it's £0 and 0 pence, or $0, 0 cents, €0, 0 cents. 0 yen, 0 rand.
Currencies with Dan. What are the currencies can Dan name? And it's so true. It's the simple things are often the best, and being able to use the simplicity of GarageBand or GarageBand and be able to create the music that all of you create. And I know that a lot of folks who are watching here, and I'm sorry, I see there's questions, I see there's comments here. Folks are sharing their original computers. So we've got C64s, we've got C16 plus 4s and Atari STs, and everyone's getting, all the old folks are coming out going, yes, my first computer. That's all right. Let's move on, Patrick. What about yourself? Now you are stuck forever, right? Because you are the GarageBand guy. You may never use anything else to create music. Is that the case? You signed a deal?
Shackled to it, yeah, absolutely. No, I've got Logic as well. Had it for a while now as well, and I do use it. But I think with GarageBand on both Mac and on iOS, I think if you're a musician, if you're an engineer, but if you're a musician who doesn't really know a lot about the technical side of things, and you want to create, record, and release your own music, you
nice.
Thanks for that. Then I think there's not a better bit of software that you can use. You're going to be able to dive in, get things recorded, get things set up really, really quickly. And I think, for me anyway, I don't know about you guys, but I find that limitations sometimes help creativity. So I find quite a lot in Logic. I would never start in Logic because I'd never get anything done. There's just so much to kind of do. There's so many options that you have. Whereas I think with GarageBand, because in certain respects you are quite restricted in terms of what you can do from a technical standpoint, somewhat, you actually kind of end up creating stuff that's a little bit more interesting than, maybe just speaking personally, than you would in something like Logic. So yeah, I don't really mind being shackled to GarageBand for that. You know.
It's an arranged marriage, but it's the one that you're happy with.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good to know. We've got Stu Cash. He's in the chat. Says my first computer was the Acorn Electron. Used to play Frogger all day, and Russ lived behind his Atari. And look, we've even got a ZX81 sighting from our friend Fly Dog. So yeah, nerding out on the old school. Oh look, Mark, VIC-20. I think that takes the cake. VIC-20 had the ad with William Shatner, where it's like the Commodore VIC-20. So anything that's endorsed by Captain Kirk has got to be a good computer. Maybe not to create music, but anyway. Would you believe, like, we're 40 minutes in here, folks, and I do have one sort of closing question here, but is there anything that any of you are thinking right now? I'll give you the open slather floor. Is there anything that you wanted to pass on, or that you've seen in the chat here as we've been going through, that you wanted to address or answer, or have a bit of free time before I hit you with our final question? Jude, yes.
Yeah, I just want to double back to this question since I had to go first. I didn't really get a good chance to think about it. But now that I've had all that time to think about it, really the thing about the two programs, Logic and GarageBand, and especially when you open up Logic, it is so familiar looking because essentially it's GarageBand. It's just wearing a few more jewelry pieces, and you just feel comfortable, especially if you come from GarageBand. To then, it's not inexpensive, $200, but if you have a MacBook, and I know sometimes there are different situations, but to me, it's worth the level jump up. And the other thing is automation. Any plugin that you add in on Logic, you automatically get an automation line for almost every parameter of that plugin, which I probably overuse automation, but for me, that was like wow, I can't believe I can just have the wet signal curve up right here, or something like that on a delay. So those are the 2 points I just wanted to jump in there and make about the two programs.
Yeah, that is very cool. And I know that's something that I get asked, and I'm sure Dan and Patrick, you get asked this, is whenever I do an automation video on iOS, it's, can I automate anything but the volume? And again, I know there's workarounds that I know that Patrick and Dan, you've shown before, where you can use separate tracks and automate and do panning automation and everything. But yeah, I guess the more fancy you want to get, and I always say this, that if you're being held back, like, don't change because you think it's going to make you better. Change, or you do something different because you can't do what you want to do in what you're using now. If you can do what you want to do in GarageBand or anything, then keep creating in that. If you're creating good music, you're already winning. You don't need to find the new shiny fancy unless you want to, as Jade said, unless you just want to tinker and play around and be the mad scientist creating shovel bases and doing whatever you want to do. We've got a question here from Ed, and I'll just throw this out again to the wider audience. An example of something cool or new in GarageBand that may be underrated or underappreciated even in 2020. Now, Dan, you mentioned the sampler, and that's one that I probably don't use enough, and live loops as well. And I know you've got a ridiculously good live loops tutorial, but I definitely don't go in and steal from whenever I get a question about it and point people towards so that I don't have to learn it myself. Anyone else got anything that you think's underrated in GarageBand that you use that other people maybe don't?
That's a good question.
Well, now that you can color your tracks, I mean, that was really helpful in Logic. So now that it's available, and I use it a lot because with the way I chop up my samples, I'll get confused about which one is which. So once you start color coding them, it's very helpful. So that would be something that I'd say to jump in and start using that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
We'd love that in iOS. Yeah, GarageBand on Mac now has colors, and we don't have it in iOS. Dan, you had something else, my friend?
It's the vintage electronic drums that are unbelievable. Really, really cool. A mate of mine's got the Boss CR78. But I mean, they're like hen's teeth now. You just cannot find them. but even things like the 808 and they're such great sounds. They're not just a cheap imitation. When you got GarageBand going through a pair of studio monitors and you play these drum sounds, they are flawlessly done.
Very good point.
Yeah, I think that so many of these instruments are underused, partly because of course with drums you can have things like the step editor, or you can just get drummer just to give you a beat or something. But when you delve more into those electronic drum kits, it's unbelievable how many there are and how good they all are. There's not a duff one among them.
Yeah, the Roland, the 909 and the 808s, again, they sound like the real, and I've never owned any of those original pieces of kit, but I've heard songs with them, and you can basically recreate the songs exactly as they were. Patrick, you've been delving into the newer version of GarageBand on Mac. Is there anything new or exciting in there apart from colors?
Apart from colors, no, that's it. Yeah.
Well, you've got all the iOS sounds now. Like you've caught up. The last 2 years of iOS sounds are in Mac now.
I'd say, speaking about the 2020 version specifically, yeah, it's going to be all those extra sounds, and as Dan mentioned, it's the quality of those sounds as well. You end up feeling, it doesn't seem particularly exciting to us because we use it all the time, but the actual quality and number of sounds that are included with just the free version of GarageBand is amazing, and you're not going to find that kind of quality anywhere else unless you're going to pay for it, obviously.
True, for free, for the £0 and 0 pence. Very good. Jade, anything 2020 GarageBand hacks and tips?
Not really 2020. This is something that's been around, and I'm actually doing it in my show next, talking about it next. It's IDAM technology.
Segue.
So a lot of people don't really know about IDAM, that you can actually use your
like
iPad.
a dental dam that you put in when you're getting surgery on your mouth.
Kind of. You can connect your iPad or iPhone to your Mac just with the standard, cable that you get with your device, straight into the back of your Mac, and then open up GarageBand, and you can record any app through the IDAM MIDI selection in GarageBand on Mac.
I'm going to have to watch your show now.
I know, yeah.
See how you do that. Sounds amazing.
I found it out.
You see Patrick and myself nodding along going, yeah, okay, we need to steal these ideas for future shows, 100%.
It's super fun. And in Logic, you can actually record the MIDI, but in GarageBand, you can only record audio. But from any app, any plugin, standalone plugin, anything, yeah. So that is a hidden secret.
Beautiful. Well, yes, and folks should definitely check out your channel and your How to App series, which is coming up in 13 minutes when we finish this show. You can jump straight over to Jay. Will put a link in because Jay moderates this channel as well as having her own channel. She does a fantastic job. So can we get a golf clap for Jade here? And
did I have to moderate today?
Did you have to? I don't know. The chat's going crazy because you're on the show, so it's all happening. Steve, your particular story with GarageBand is that you use it very heavily around about this time of year. Yeah, so you work your ass off, as we say here in Australia, for about 11 months of the year, and then you get a Christmas break, a Christmas miracle, where you get time to create music. What are you looking forward to doing and creating this holiday season?
It's gonna be epic. It's gonna be epic. I've got something big, something planned. Pete, I've been considering DistroKid and putting stuff on Spotify ever since I got into this, and I just never really pulled the trigger. But I've got stuff in the works that I'm going to be doing. I got singers lined up. I've been leaning heavily on Jade lately. Yes. No, I'm not leaning on her. But,
is she in your basement, actually? Is it a pre-recorded Jade there?
Sense. She's chained up behind me. But
it went dark.
It's more of like the advice I'm getting from the group, the advice I get from your tutorials, the advice I get from Jade and her tutorials, and honestly, guilty, she might receive texts at like odd times since you guys are in Australia and I'm in the Midwest. But so I've been learning a lot. I think finally this is the year that stuff gets put on Spotify. So
gets released. So you'll finally take my advice, Steve.
Yeah. So,
You've been doing the create and the record, and you're finally going to do the release. That's good news. We need clearly epic music out there.
Music. It's just not on Spotify, but
we want it. We want you. Yeah. We want you on all the platforms. For sure. All right, we've got 10 minutes left, so we're gonna do this. We're going to have to limit ourselves to about a 2-minute rant for each of you on this one. And why don't we start with Patrick, because Jude can actually get some time to think this time. So we'll go bottom, and then we'll circle around here. We'll put Patrick on the spot. Patrick, no pressure, but what is the future of GarageBand? Where do you see GarageBand going in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, from a Mac point of view, a couple of months ago, if you'd asked me that question, you might get a very different answer, because we were kind of left to rot for years on end with bug updates and bug fixes and all that kind of nonsense. But obviously, Apple have decided that they do actually care about GarageBand on the Mac platform, and have given it a bit of an update and stuff. So, yeah, it's kind of looking good. It's hard to know. So in terms of features, I don't know what kind of features would be added or what they could add to the Mac version in terms of big feature updates, because then they kind of run the risk of really kind of bleeding over into the kind of Logic side of things and maybe cannibalizing the Logic sales, which when you're Apple and you love money, you probably don't want to do. But on iOS, obviously, we saw in the last update, they did add features. So obviously, it's not a massive thing, but they added a kind of time ruler and stuff, so you can switch the way that you're going about recording and creating your projects. So I would say in terms of, and obviously, they keep releasing really good sound update packs. So I think in terms of the future, it'll be sounds and instruments and stuff like that we'll see more of, over perhaps extra shiny, exciting new features.
Evolution, not revolution.
Yes,
is your tip.
Quintessentially Apple, that, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Mr. Baker, what about you? What say you? Where's Garage? You've obviously started using GarageBand on your old iPad too, and now we see where's it going.
Well, I do a lot of teaching on it, and one thing that GarageBand has that so many other things don't have is that it'll say, oh, this is a such and such scale, or this is this chord, or, you know, when you get your smart chords. I mean, in terms of the future of it, I don't know. I mean, I think, as Patrick said about new sounds, because actually the platform is, in my view, good enough. I mean, the time ruler is a nice touch, and it plays into the sort of old school musicians, more like myself, who like to see an entire song rather than work. I hardly ever work in sections on GarageBand. I'll just have, I'll just go, 1058 bars or something, like that, and just record from start to finish, and then just put things together as a block. In terms of the future, I mean, sounds and perhaps a few different effects perhaps that you can choose, but I think 4 is enough. But as the power of an iPad increases, I mean, my newest iPad is this one, which is a 5th generation, so it's starting to get a little bit older now. But it still does everything. LumaFusion as well. It does everything I want it to do. So
does the job. Yeah, I love it. And as Tom says here, there's always going to be new sounds to keep up with the latest trends. That's right. We've got the old 80s style synth wave, and then before that it was the trap beat and the future bass, and whatever the kids are playing, GarageBand's going to release a pack on that one. Jade, what say you? What's the future? You like to give some hot takes on where you think things are going. What's the future of GarageBand?
Well, I used to work for Apple for a time in their Genius bar, so I know.
You're a genius.
I know a little bit about how they work, but not so much, because they just like to give things and take things away. So I think we're going to continue to see the symbiotic relationship between GarageBand and Logic, especially on iOS. There's going to be a Logic appear on iOS down the track. I mean, the iPad Pro definitely has the power to do it, so that is definitely coming. And I think they're going to continue to add little things to GarageBand and then take some of those things and throw them into Logic. I think that's clearly the path they're doing. And I think for development as well, with the M1 chip and stuff, it's not the magical thing that everybody thought with all these apps just appearing now on Mac OS. But I think for the future, there's going to be a lot more apps developed that will work across all of them. I think we may even see a hybrid Mac with a touch screen at some stage, and I think it'll just be one of them. I think it'll be a specialty thing. But yeah, I think they're just going to continue just giving little bits and taking away little bits like they do, and keep progressively adding stuff.
Keep teasing us with what could be, and then giving us something that we're just like, that's just enough. That's just enough to keep us excited, and we'll keep buying things. Steve, what say you? Where's GarageBand going in the future?
That's a good question, because I'm not as technically knowledgeable on everything iOS. I'm still new to the whole Apple platform, and so the things that surprised me in the last year is just talking about no headphone ports and things like that. You're like, so now that you get new generations of iPads, what does it mean for the iPad composer and creators when you don't have that? So we'll see what the interface is. I don't use an interface because I just do everything on the glass. So as long as I can continue to do that, I don't really have to worry about lag issues or anything like that. But I am going to say this really quick because I want Jude to have his time. But somebody had asked somebody, it'd be nice if there was an auto bassist on GarageBand, and there is. You just need to. In fact, one of my songs I'm doing this winter will have an auto bassist. I love it. So it just matched the style. So I
don't underestimate those autoplay features for sure. They can work.
Or you could use a banjo,
or you can you can hire Dan Baker 74, and he can play his shovel bass on your song. So or violin. And Steve, I like what you were talking about there of just using the device, and I think that's the one key differentiator with GarageBand is that you can just use this piece of glass, like just this one iPhone, and that's all you need. So to call out Dan and to be a bit self-serving, Dan recorded violins for one of my songs on the built-in microphone on his iPhone and played along, and it sounds great. You would not listen to that and go, well, it's an okay song, but that violin sounds a bit naff because it was clearly recorded on an iPhone. No one knows, no one cares. If it sounds good, it is good at the end of the day. Jude, yes, you do have 2 minutes. We've timed it very well here. So what's the future of what does GarageBand have to do to lure you back from the evil that is Logic? Like, what would it have to add to make you excited to come back?
Well, now going last, everyone took all my answers. So no, but seriously, tying it all together, I mean, I think you all have it right. And, as Logic adds features, I think they'll start to, give little features to GarageBand. And it doesn't always work in that direction. Like live loops went the other way, from GarageBand to Logic. But as far as futuristic, and I don't know if there's any way for this to even happen, but instead of doing something like I've taken some Logic classes through Zoom. But rather than share your screen and kind of, look at your Logic screen, if there was some way to do real-time online collaborating within the program itself, maybe the music quality is better, and maybe, I don't know about as far as delay and lag time and latency and all, but just to have something more for, real-time collaboration within the program.
That is good, and I think you're spot on. I think one thing we've learned over the last 8 months, and again, we've got 2 folks in the UK, 2 in the US, 2 in Australia here. We're collaborating right now in this very show, but collaborating online with music is easier and better, and it's improving. Like the things we can do now, you simply couldn't do unless you were going to ship a tape via FedEx to someone else's studio that they could then play and then record a track and then ship back to you. Like we then got to the point we could send floppy disks to each other. We're then at the point where you have to get your 2400 board modem and send MIDI files, and now we're at the point where at the click of a button I can send an entire gigabyte GarageBand project to Jade with 4 vocal takes on, and then she can bring it and mix it back into her project. So there's ways, but I agree with you that I think if Apple want to really embrace this and get an iPhone and an iPad in everyone's hand and GarageBand on everything, how you collaborate and that sharing feature, I think is gold. And I think if they can improve that, make that robust and easy, and not have 14 versions every time anyone scratches themselves, it saves another conflict version when you're trying to share. I think that could definitely be something. So I'll steal yours now, Jude, and say that's my future of GarageBand. Make it easier for us to collaborate. We are right at the end here, so that was a whole lot of fun. And if you're watching this one, you got some value out of this. Hit the like button, but also go and check out the music and the channels of all of these people, because you won't be disappointed. You'll probably get lost. The only problem is if you went and watched all the Patrick videos and all the Dan videos and listened to Jude's music and Jay's videos and Steve's music, you'll spend about 3 days and you'll create nothing. So do it in moderation, but do go and check out. So we're going to finish off there, but thank you to Patrick from the GarageBand Guy. Thank you to Dan Baker. Appreciate you being here as well, my friend. Thank you, Jade, from her How To App series coming up right now. Clearly, Steve, clearly epic music. Thank you for being here. The OG GarageBand User Weekly, my friend, Mr. Jude Cabana, one of our amazing moderators, and the GarageBand Users Facebook group. Over 10,000 members now, so he's got his work cut out for him, keeping everyone playing nicely over there. On behalf of all of my guests here today, I've been Pete Johns for Studio Live today, and thank you all for being here. We'll catch you again real soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye.